let me just spend a moment of personal privilege on my show to tell you, and I had not intended to tell you this.
I hugged him.
Bel K hugged him. We met
twice.
When did we go to Waffle House?
That was like a
November?
Yeah, I think so, because it was...
Of 2021?
It was either November or really late October, because it was about 6 weeks before you started.
Before I started.
So, no, yeah, you're right. Anyway, go ahead.
So, let's just say November 1st. November 1st of 2021. That'll be the day that we designate. I met Bel K. So I've known him 2.5 years. I don't believe I've ever seen you initiate physical contact with another human being.
Love that, man. He's a great human being.
But Mayor Glenn Jacobs walked into the studio, or rather the control area, before he came into the studio. And I did not know he was in the control room because he was in a corner that I can't quite see. But I knew something was up when Bel K jumped from his seat, removed his headphones, ran over, and then hugged him.
Yeah.
Hugged him.
And I told him, since, Thomas Massey defended the Jones Acts, he is now my favorite politician. So he's top of the heap now.
And then he comes back a little while later during a break and said, hey, by the way, sorry, but I couldn't help myself.
I needed it for the story. I want to be able to tell people
that I
just ran up and hugged
Kane.
Yeah.
Which I broke my promise. I accidentally called him Kane at the end of the interview. I tried not to.
He's so used to that.
I know.
I mean, that's such a huge part of his personal history.
Well,
too.
You know what? He and I have a relationship exterior to that. And I'm not saying it makes me better or worse or whatever. I don't follow wrestling. And so
I don't either. I'm much more interested in him as a libertarian who is actually in office.
And actually acts like a libertarian when he gets it.
Yes, absolutely.
There are a lot of politicians that try to act like libertarians when they run for office, and they talk a good game. There are a precious few of them, and I would consider Massey one, despite...
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul is another. And Glenn Jacobs is yet a third. I'm sure that there are many,
and I
more.
consider him much more effective than those other two guys, because as mayor in a town, he can facilitate things much easier than a Massey can as 1 out of 435, or Rand can as 1 out of 100.
Well, I asked the question. He answered the question. There was no need to belabor the point. Today was not the day that Mayor Glenn Jacobs was going to make any sort of definitive announcement about his next steps. But let me tell you, every time I speak of or to Glenn Jacobs, there is a gaggle of conversation around our discussion or around him regarding what he's going to do next in political circles in the state of Tennessee. And most people want him to run for governor.
I think the only way that doesn't happen is if his wife is just like, honey, please no.
Don't want to move to Nashville, don't want to do this, that, or the other. But he is, I believe him, and y'all can accuse me of being naive if you desire, and that's fine. That's fair. Because there is a danger in genuinely believing politicians, but he's one of the few that I genuinely believe he feels called to it. You know what I want? And I'm going to get off on a rant. I'm going to put on my rant pants for a moment. What we need more of in politics in America today is the reluctant political figure. The reluctant politician. There is a scene, if you've not seen the miniseries John Adams, starring, what is his name? Paul Giamatti as John Adams. There is a scene that I think of often when I think of the type of political figure that I want in our lives in 2024. Not those that have their egos stroked by politics, not those that use it as a way to engage in competitive back and forth, not those that have a particular agenda based on perhaps a particular affiliation, not those that want to do the bidding of lobbyists, I want the reluctant politician. The one that tells me it's the last thing they want to do, but they feel compelled by God Almighty to do it. And there's a scene in John Adams where John Adams is telling Abigail, right? Is that right? Abigail. Yeah, that's right. Martha Washington. I don't know what Thomas Jefferson's wife's name. John Adams' wife was Abigail. Yeah. John Adams is lying in bed with his wife. And he tells her that he has to go back to Washington, D.C. Now, obviously, for Abigail Adams, this meant life without her husband, first and foremost, without her soulmate. It means far, far more work for her because she's running the show in Braintree, Massachusetts, in the absence of her husband. I mean, they had a life to lead. They had a farm to tend. But more than anything, it's the heartbreak of losing her husband for another series of months or years. And he tells her that he has to go back to Washington, D.C. She bursts into tears. She's crying in bed, and he tells her that he had to do it, that he has to do it. He doesn't want to do it. We need more politicians like John Adams. We need more politicians that are loath to enter the arena, but they do so because of you and because of me and because of their belief in the United States of America. We sure as hell don't have one of those in the White House today. This guy wouldn't know his butt from a hole in the ground if he had a compass and a flashlight to find it.
Mr. Wise Guy over here.
Yet here he is. Here he is. Running America into the ground as we speak. And engaging in a series of lawfare events in an attempt to dispatch of his political opponent for 2024 without actually having to meet him in the arena.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Joe Biden consistently and with a fair degree of expectation lurches to the left, lurches to the left, lurches to the left. Forgetting the mainstream middle in America that Joe Biden and the leftist Democrats seem to have forgotten. So it's a nice respite from all of that we meet and we have a conversation with Mayor Glenn Jacobs. I don't know. For those asking, I don't know. I don't have any particular knowledge about what his future plans are. But I know that anytime that we get around him, many folks are very invested in the idea of him running for governor or at least some sort of future office. And we'll keep you up to date on that. The United States Supreme Court had a major decision yesterday, and I want to tell you about it. The court on Monday allowed Idaho to enforce its statewide ban on puberty blocking drugs, hormone therapy, and sex change surgeries for minors. The court, in a 6-3 decision, ruled that the law passed in 2023. This has an effect on the state of Tennessee, by the way, because of the laws that we have passed preventing puberty-blocking drugs, hormone therapy, and sex change surgeries for minors. The court, in a 6-3 decision, ruled that the law may go into effect, although the state cannot apply it to the two plaintiffs who challenged the legislation. More on that in a moment. The court granted Idaho's emergency request after a U.S. District Court Judge, B. Lynn Windmill, no D, Windmill, not like a windmill, it's W-I-N, Windmill. Judge Googly Moogly ruled that the state's government could not enforce the law during ongoing litigation and argued the measure likely violated what she saw as parental rights to decide the medical treatment of children. I'm going to apply this to something going on in the state of Tennessee being debated in the General Assembly as we speak. The Idaho state government has appealed the December ruling to the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The body has yet to rule on the matter. So this is not a final say or a final decision. However, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that Idaho can enforce the statewide ban while this thing is being appealed. 3 Democrat justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Elena Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor, wrote that the court should uphold Windmill's decision, while the other 6 held the injunction filed against Idaho was too broad and only applied to the 2 plaintiffs challenging the law. The two minors, referred to as Pam Poe and Jane Doe in legal filings, have both been receiving estrogen treatment. One has been prescribed puberty-blocking medication. Idaho is one of 24 states, Tennessee's another one, that have passed some form of legislation against sex change surgery for minors. 23 of those states have also prohibited puberty-blocking drugs and hormone treatment for children. Tennessee's one of them. While this ruling does not address the legality of statewide legislation banning sex change surgeries and procedures for minors, the court is set to decide whether the cases regarding similar statewide laws in Kentucky and Tennessee are legal in the coming weeks. The Department of Justice has spoken up about those two states' bans, with Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar writing in a filing that, quote, these laws and the conflicting court decisions about their validity have created profound uncertainty for transgender adolescents and their families around the nation. No, there should be some certainty here. And I want to back this up for a moment. And for those of you in Aniana, re-explain the situation. We've come to a point in the United States of America, because we believe in freedom, and I do too. I mean, I default to liberty every time I'm considering whether or not a government edict should be written, an executive order should be followed, a law should be passed. Is this the job of government? How does it encroach upon individual liberty, individual responsibility? Is it the role of government to initiate this action? What public health is being protected with this law? That is the standard that I start with.